I love video games and have probably spent most of my life playing them. I still get excited about my favorite games like I did as a kid. Playing Mario Galaxy, Uncharted, and Pokemon all day. Now that was the life. One of my earliest memories of playing video games was my first time seeing how realistic the graphics were in NBA 2K16. I was absolutely stunned. How could they get the faces and mannerisms of my favorite NBA players so well? Photorealism seemed to be the way to achieve realism in video games, and the idea that photorealism meant an immersive experience became a trend in the video game industry. Today, it's not hard to feel choked by the video game market when many of the video games released feel like uninspired corporate money grabs reusing the same formulas and styles. As photorealism grew more popular, it became almost expected that every AAA title should strive for hyper-photorealism. Due to this, every game from the style to the perspective felt the same, and photorealism was being pushed as the future of gaming. Where more frames per second and sharper graphics meant a better game. Does this mean video games are caught in a static form, never to evolve further? To this, I say no. Video games have already evolved past being static. As the medium continues to grow and explore new styles and perspectives, the future of video games is not solely in photorealism, but in immersion, expression, and creative freedom. Before going any further, we should understand what realism and perspective really mean in context of video games. In terms of video games, this is how well a game can convey its environment and how the player interacts and perceives said environment. But how can we measure realism and perspective? We can measure the quality of realism and perspective in a video game through a single key term: immersion. Immersion is how well a video game brings the player into its world. Successful immersion should make the consumer feel as they are not only playing the game, but a living part of the game. This is where I believe many would point towards the games with cutting-edge technology and hyper-photorealism, but true immersion lies much deeper. Rainworld. Rainworld is a survival platformer developed by Videocall and published by Adult Swim Games. Animated and detailed pixel art, Rainworld features a world that feels tangible. What separates Rainworld from most other titles, though, is the care put into the immersion. The player takes the position of a helpless slug cat, making his way through a massive world, traversing through unpredictable and dangerous terrain. So how does Rainworld convey this? The game utilizes complex AI to create an interconnected world. The creatures, environments, and ecosystems that make up Rainworld will react accordingly to the players and each other's actions. The animals in this game don't feel like enemies waiting to kill you. They're animals, hungry, wild, and ferocious, but still social, emotional, and afraid, just a slug cat. One example of the complex AI in Rainworld is found in the Noodlefly. A Noodlefly mother will usually be accompanied by 2 or 3 baby Noodleflies. Kill one of her children for food, and the mother Noodlefly will try to kill you and exact her revenge, following you wherever you go. But there is a sly way to get around this. You see, mother Noodleflies are actually programmed to kill who they think killed the child. This allows Slugcat to throw the body before mother Noodlefly sees it, essentially tricking the Noodlefly into killing another animal. The complexity of Rainworld's AI involves giving the animals their own thoughts and perceptions about the world surrounding them. The animals function based on the current situation, not by a predetermined code. Their thoughts and reactions all serve to make the player's decision-making more important, immersing them further. Photorealism is not what makes a game more or less immersive, but rather each style has distinct qualities and characteristics which lead to unique modes of interaction, and Rainworld is proof of this as it achieves superb realism. Many see photorealism as the future of gaming because of its ability to create any environment in a realistic manner. To some extent, this is true, like how Ghost of Tsushima allows the player to learn and interact with Japan during the First Mongol War. But what many would be surprised to learn is that photorealism is actually a pretty restrictive art style when it came to hardware and gameplay limitations. As realistic graphics worked best with only specific video game genres, including first-person shooters, racing games, and sports games. This caused other genres and styles that are tied together to be excluded from the video game market. But many games will use a different style and perspective to further its emotional themes and narratives, which is why it's important to not exclude other styles and allow for more artistic expression. Celeste. Celeste is a 2-dimensional platformer developed by Extremely OK Games and published by Maddie Makes Games. In Celeste, you play as Madeline, a young Canadian woman who is determined to climb Mount Celeste, a towering peak standing 3,000 meters tall. Madeline, although very headstrong, is also very heavily conflicted and anxious majority of the playthrough. Celeste is a game about the different roles anxiety plays in our lives, and Madeline's journey to climb Mount Celeste, even though she is not an experienced mountain climber, comes from her desire to escape a powerful but ambitious sense of anxiety that she is a failure. The game builds on those themes using clever twists on 2D classic perspectives. You see, Celeste has a weird structure. Instead of side-scrolling levels that play smoothly, Celeste is organized into rooms. Each room perfectly fits onto the screen, and Madeline always starts on the left and the exit is always on the right. Every time players misjudge how hard a level is, Madeline dies. Every time players make human errors, Madeline dies. Whenever players hesitate because they have reached a new part of the jumping puzzle, Madeline dies. Yet no matter how many times she dies, she always respawns at the start of the room in a matter of seconds. The game, although not pulling any of its punches, encourages the players to keep trying. Just as the players telling themselves they will never complete the level, so is Madeline telling herself she will never climb the mountain. The character arc and development Madeline goes through in the narrative is mirrored by the player's own achievements within the game, and therefore makes the journey much more impactful. Art should never be limited to one artistic style of expression, and the same applies to video games. With the last decade of advancements in video games, photorealism has only gotten more complex. From the textures and character models to the environments, everything has become more detailed. With costs rising in each new generation of hardware, so do the expenses of photorealism. This means that only the largest publishing companies will be able to afford photorealism. With modern technology, anybody can decide to make their own video game and tell their own story. The most popular games don't have to be the most expensive, and small creators today can thrive without any large corporations backing them. Cuphead. Cuphead is a classic run-and-gun game that also heavily focuses on boss battles. The game takes heavy inspiration from 1930s style animation. It's completely hand-drawn with a big band jazz soundtrack to boot. The game's willingness to experiment with its animation and game mechanics is both what makes Cuphead such an impressive game and why many other studios would see it as a risk. To other studios, developing a game like Cuphead where every frame is hand-drawn and the style is completely foreign is much riskier than just sticking to the same style that has worked for them before. So what studio took the risk and decided to create a game like Cuphead? Studio MDHR both developed and published Cuphead. If you haven't heard of them yet, that's probably because Cuphead is their only title. In fact, Studio MDHR is a family-run business with only 19 people on the team. The two who brought this project to life were Jared and Chad Moldenhauer. The brothers grew up playing video games and as children were always curious about what made them tick. When they got older, the brothers decided it would be time to start working on a game themselves, and without the backing of any big publishing companies, they would call upon their families for help. With both brothers using their personal savings for the game, Cuphead would become a fully fledged game, releasing on September 29th, 2017. And Cuphead would go on to be a great commercial success, selling over 1 million copies in its first 2 weeks. Cuphead is an example of how with the modern technology and enough drive, creating a game on par with current AAA titles is not a pipe dream. Limiting video games to photorealism diminishes the creative freedom of smaller artists. Without Studio MDHR, we might have never seen a game that plays or looks like Cuphead does. The video game industry does not need the same game but with better graphics. Instead, it needs more encouragement towards smaller artists that can use their passion to push video games forward. With the end of this video in sight, I just want to make a personal note that I do not hate or even dislike photorealism as a style. In fact, many of the games I grew up with and still love to this day have common photorealistic styles and perspectives. And photorealism as a style can still achieve great emotional beats using unique environments and fun gameplay to immerse the player. But photorealism itself is not what will immerse the player. That's really all I wanted to say. Thanks for watching.